Hello. Uh, ha, ha, ha. We're just gonna- Hello, everybody. Welcome on in. If everyone can hear me, please let me know. There's a little chat window and sidebar. In the chat, if you want everyone to see your messages, make sure to change where it says from to host and panelists to everyone. Yeah, someone can let me in the chat if you can hear me. I don't have a moderator today. I can't really hear what you're hearing. Hello from Detroit. Hi, Deb. Yeah, can everyone hear me? Today will be very interesting because I am broadcasting live from the road. I've been on tour / traveling for the past few weeks with my friend Daria. We've been touring in a truck pulling an RV rig, which is what I'm in right now. I'm blurring it out right now. It's a little bit chaotic. Yeah, so we literally just pulled into Omaha like 5 minutes ago after driving for like 7 hours. So hello, everybody. It has been very hard to do any work on the road, mind you, let alone teaching a workshop. So we'll see how this goes today. But it's a fun little experiment to see how I can balance teaching work life with artist life. Hello from rainy New York. It's basically been raining everywhere we've been. Yeah, we're from LA. I flew into Boise, but we played in Boise, we had a fun show in Boise, and then we drove from Boise, Idaho through Montana. We played in Missoula and Bozeman, and then drove to Madison, Wisconsin, and then played in Chicago, and then was at her grandma's farm in Pennsylvania for like a week and a half, and just started to make our way back west a couple days ago. But yeah, it's been a lot. We got stuck in a ditch like 2 days ago, which, you know, if you're a normal car that gets stuck in the ditch, it's like a bummer. But if you have a truck pulling a giant RV rig, it's like a totally different situation. But we survived. We got out. We're in Omaha now. Yeah. If someone can let me know in the chat if you can hear my voice above the music, that would be fantastic. If you don't know who I am, by the way, if you don't know who I am, my name is Minnie Bear. I am. Oh, this music really went down. Yeah, my name is Minnie Bear. That is my artist name. And I am the Chief Education Officer at Fem House. So I basically program all of the music production, workshops, and online courses, and all of that great stuff. So, yeah, we typically have free monthly workshops. So this is this month's workshop on vocal production. This is actually round 2 vocal production. We had a workshop last year, which we're going to kind of tack onto that. We have the same actually guest artist as last year's workshop, which we're very excited to have. She'll be tuning in soon. Her name is Shay. I'll be introducing her later. Hi, Jamie. Hi, everybody. But yeah, so we're going to be touching on vocal production stuff today, which is really exciting. I normally have a much better setup for demoing this kind of stuff. So we'll see how it goes. We're going to be just testing this out together. I will say that vocal production and just like demonstrating recording vocals via screen sharing in Zoom is really not the easiest thing. I wish it was easier. So I assure you that there will be technical difficulties, but hopefully you get the gist of how to do all that fun stuff. But yeah, I wanted to check in with everyone and just kind of just see like who here is tuning in for the first time to a Femhouse workshop. Show of hands. And then also if you're returning, if you've attended a workshop before or an online course, let us know in the chat. Yeah, returning. Yes. I love seeing returning faces. I also love seeing new faces all the time. I was mentioning to the co-founder of Femhouse the other day that there's usually new faces, which I appreciate. Cool, returning. For those of you returning, did you happen to tune into the last vocal production workshop? There is Shay. I'm going to make you actually co-host before I forget. Okay, that's okay. I will be honest. I had to watch a recap of the last vocal production workshop because I have no idea what I went over. Because a lot of stuff happened this year where I have no brain cells left. I just have no memories left at all. So I'm just going to spotlight myself for the foreseeable features. For everyone, there we go. Okay. Cool. Well, the good news is if you did not attend that workshop, I'm going to be recapping a bunch of stuff and then going over some things that I didn't go over before. And then we have our wonderful guest artist, Shay, who will be sharing her tips and tricks. I'm going to stop this music because it's really intense and doesn't really go with right now's vibe. But yeah, welcome everybody. Welcome to those if you are here for the first time. We'd love to see new faces in our community. And then, for those of you returning, welcome back. Today's topic is vocal production. I would say watching that recap from last workshop, I would say most of it, the first portion of what I went over was more about technical aspects of just what gear do you need to record vocals, like a microphone, an audio interface, and things like that. And I talked about that for a good bit before I got into some of the more fun stuff. So the good news is today I'm going to kind of jump into more of the fun stuff. And we're going to kind of keep this snappy. I mentioned, Shay, before you popped in that I literally just got to Omaha 5 minutes ago. The person I've been traveling / touring with literally just backed this up here. And it's just, it's a whole thing. We'll make a documentary about our adventures one day. But anyhow, until then, let's dive into this workshop. So actually, before I start talking about the first topic, I wanted to check in, test the water temp, and see if there are any particular topics that anyone was hoping to touch on or wanted to go over. I'm sure you read the workshop description, but I believe, I'm just going to pull it up here for a moment, but it mentioned that we're going to go over take lanes, which is basically part of the workflow process of recording vocals. That makes life easier, makes that whole process easier. We are not that one. We're also going to go over, where is it? There you go. How to streamline your workflow, how to comp your vocals, vocal stacking and arrangement. So I'll show a few projects that kind of go over my process in terms of arranging vocals and how you can use producing as a way to kind of creatively push forward that process. And then I'll just kind of lightly teach on some mixing stuff. We're not going to go super deep into it today. I don't think, at least I won't, but I'll go over just some things that you can do to kind of get your vocals sounding good. Um, cool. So yeah, Sable folks said vocal presets and any tips, tricks for finding your sound. And then Jamie, I was wondering a little bit about EQ setups or templates in Ableton. Oh, templates. Interesting. Okay. Maybe I'll just write that down so I don't forget. Vocal templates and vocal presets and finding your sound, which is always, I feel like, even not even just for vocals, finding your sound is a good topic. Cool. Thank you. Those are great things to pop into our agenda for today. All right. So let's dive in. I'm going to actually stop that share. Let's do desktop. Cool. So one thing I did want to show you, I'm going to show you how to do this from scratch. But basically, what we're looking at right now, let me actually change this to Zoom output. By the way, can everyone see Ableton? I should be able to actually see over here. Chat. Yes. Okay. Cool. So yeah, so I just wanted to show you this because, and I actually, to be honest, I don't do this every single time. I will do this if I'm working in a session and I've kind of like made a lot of headway in terms of like adding a lot of tracks that contain a lot of third-party plugins. So a great example would be like third-party synths and maybe third-party EQs or third-party reverbs that tend to use a lot of reverb, or not a lot of reverb, a lot of CPU. And one way to know that is by looking at the percentage over here. So you can see that this is like really low, but sometimes like you'll have a session where when you play back audio, it'll jump to like, I don't know, like 70 or 80%. And then we kind of touched up on this way more in the last session, but basically like if you go to live settings and you go to the audio tab, you can set your buffer size, which basically is like what you would choose if you're like either recording audio or playing back audio. So if you're recording audio, typically you want a lower buffer size. And if you're when you're recording audio, you want to choose a lower buffer size. And then when you're playing back audio, you want to choose a larger buffer size. So that being said, if you have like a really big session that is pretty beefy, and even with a higher buffer size, you hear like little crackles and audio dropouts, and you see this like percentage really high. Or one big thing is latency. So you'll see that in this section here, it'll say like overall latency, which basically is just basically telling you that if I were to sing something or say something and record it with my mic, it's just like how much time passes between when I say or sing it and when I hear it. So ideally, when you're recording something, you want the latency to be pretty low, so that way you don't hear a delay. And when you have really large sessions that maybe with a lot of plugins that add latency, it's really helpful sometimes to create a new session that's just specifically for recording vocals. So I might have showed this last time, I can't remember, but basically what I do is let's just pretend that this is like my main session or song that I'm working on. Usually what I'll do is I'll go to File, Save Live Set As, and then save it to my same project folders, which would be the name of the song. And then I would call it the name of the song Vox Session or something like that. Or what I'll do is I'll just basically create like a blank session, save it in the same project folder, and then basically just like import the instrumental. So I'm just going to turn this down because it's probably really loud. But so this is just literally the instrumental here. So that way I have something to sing along to, right? So it's just like one track, the stereo file of the track. And then from there, what I can then do is start adding tracks and recording on them. And then that's when I'll show you in a moment how to like record using something called take lanes. So yeah, basically what you're seeing here is, I have a track called Lead, another track called Lead, and then we'll talk about Melodyne in a moment, which I think we talked about last time, but I'll basically just like tune my vocals on each track and then just like record a bunch of takes. And then once I'm done, then I'll export those audio clips and then import them into the main session. So I'm just showing you this because it's like not something you have to do. And to be honest, I don't do it every time when I just like kind of want to like keep moving forward. And that's kind of honestly like that's like the main thing of just like making music. It's just like you want to keep pushing forward and try to like finish the arrangement ideally as soon as possible. So that way, like, you know, you don't spend like 20 years working on a song. Because, you know, in my experience, if you get stuck on something and then every time you open up the session, I find it's really hard to finish. So you kind of try to remove as many blocks as possible. And this is, yeah, anyhow. So I was just showing you this so that in case you're experiencing or you're running into this block of like, I'm working in this session and there's a lot of latency or my CPU is freaking out. Yeah, you can basically just create a new set and then just record your vocals in there. But yeah, what we're going to do right now is we're going to create a new live set. We're not going to save that. I'm going to, cool. What time is it? All right, so I'll delete all this stuff. And actually, Jamie, I can kind of touch on your question now about templates. So one thing about templates is like, it just depends on like what you mean by the word template. So one kind of template is if you like know that you have like a specific workflow of how you like to record. So for example, if you have, I don't know, if you know that you're always going to record like a lead vocal track, which is like the main vocal. And let's just say like you have a very specific vocal chain, meaning a chain of effects that you like to add to your vocals basically every single time. So I'm just going to delete this, but basically maybe that's just like EQ and compressor and maybe saturation. We'll talk about this in a moment. And like you have a very specific vocal chain that you like to use, and maybe you like to, I don't know, always record doubles, which we'll talk about in a little bit as well. And let's say there's just like a set of effects that you like to use. So let's just say there's like very specific things that you do every single time. So one thing that you could do is go to File, save live set as template. And then what that will do is in the browser, it will basically create over here a section where you can find your templates, which is great because if there's like, I don't know, like a really specific template that you like to use, so maybe your vocal session template, and you don't want to have to like create things from scratch every single time. You can basically go over here, double click on it, and then it would open it. So Ableton Live has like a set of templates that they have. I don't find them particularly helpful, but again, you can kind of just like create your own templates. And then one other thing I'll note is you were talking about EQ. So you might have been referring to, like if I go to audio effects and then let's say like EQ over here, if I click on the arrow, these are basically presets, meaning that it's the EQ plugin, right? Ableton Live's EQ8 plugin, but then underneath here are basically presets. So basically someone's taken kind of the time to like adjust the settings in that particular effect. So if I choose light vocal, this is a particular EQ that has been shaped here. If I go to, and I think there might be like a few other, yeah, there's like a singing one. That's a really crazy one. Okay. That's also a really crazy one. I wonder what you would even use it that for. Okay. And then, you know, so on and so forth. So you can kind of like look through these, like vocal A. Yeah, these are insane. I personally think that with EQ, I don't find like, I find that I often like shape my EQs from scratch, but we'll talk about EQ in a moment. But yeah, I just wanted to point out that for any effect with Ableton stock effects, they always have presets here. They can kind of look through, and sometimes I find that the presets can be helpful if you want like a starting point. But yeah, let's talk about take lanes. So what is a take lane? Actually, can anyone who already knows what it is tell me what it is in the chat? Also, maybe if you use like another DAW like Logic, where this has pretty much always existed, this concept. So it has to do with something called comping. Anybody? Let me actually select. So what I'm going to do actually while I'm waiting here is I'm going to go to live settings. So let's just say I'm going to go ahead and record. And by the way, just like a little caveat for what I'm about to demo, I had literally no time to like thoughtfully set this up so that the audio doesn't sound crazy. So you're definitely going to hear probably like a doubling of my voice, and it might sound, the levels might sound really crazy, just because this is not really an ideal situation. And also Zoom screen sharing does not make it easy to demo recording vocals. So but yeah, an audio input device in the audio tab, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my audio interface, because that's what I have my mic plugged into. So we went over this last time. I'm going to set kind of a lower buffer size. So actually, because Zoom screen sharing already adds latency, I'm going to 64, see if we can get away with that. Zoom does suck. I'll talk about presets later. Talk about plugins that I typically use later, but yeah, we'll get into presets and plugins and all the good stuff later. Okay. So actually what I'm going to do is, I think when I was in the truck cab earlier on my computer, while my amazing friend who has been driving this entire time, because I don't know how to drive a truck pulling a rig, I exported the instrumental, I think, of the song. Was it? No, I think it's in my downloads folder. There you go. Okay. Unfortunately, I don't know if I know the BPM offhand, but we're just going to fake it. I think it's 138. So yeah. So let's just say I'm going to record a section of the song. I think it's over here. Right. Yeah, this is definitely not the right tempo, but hold on. There we go. Okay. Actually, I think this is correct. All right. So I'm just right-clicking here, and then I can do something called Add Locator, which is great because it kind of just shows me where like maybe a section of a song starts. So like bar 17, great. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to arm the track here. And you're actually, let me just turn this off. So normally, if you wanted to monitor through Ableton, you would click on auto. I don't want to do that. What I am going to do though is, because I'm basically connecting my mic to an audio interface, which is Universal Audio. We have this fun little standalone application where I can monitor my audio through here. So I can hear my voice right now. You're going to hear a weird doubling because basically this signal plus the whatever's going through Zoom, it's happening twice. You don't need to understand. Just understand that my voice sounds doubled right now, and it sounds normal to me, which is all that matters because I'm the one that's singing, and I need people to hear myself, right? So ideally, what you would want to do is you would set the level, right? So this is probably a little bit too loud, so I'm gonna just turn this down. Blah blah blah. So I'm just gonna do this really quickly. The level's not gonna be perfect because we're just, demoing this here. But normally, what I would do is have probably the level probably between here, maybe up to like around -12, and then like actually a good peak here is usually, this is pretty quiet actually. No, this is fine. Is it like maybe like -6, at most maybe -3. And then what I would do is, I don't remember the lyrics, so we're probably just gonna, actually what's really helpful is I did write down these lyrics because I demoed this in my class just a couple months ago. Unless I deleted the note. And then that would not be helpful. Here we go. Love it. We love lyrics. Writing down your lyrics, pro tip. Okay, so here we go. And actually what you could do and what I normally do is I would like highlight this section that I'm going to be recording. Maybe probably. Okay, so actually what I'm gonna do is maybe let's do, this is like what, one bar, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So 16 bars. I'm gonna click and drag to highlight it. I'm gonna type Command L, which basically loops this section. And so then what's gonna happen is I'm gonna basically click on the record button because this track is armed, it's gonna record on it. And then it's just gonna loop over and over again, where I can basically sing multiple what are called takes. So let's do that. Actually, what we're gonna do is maybe start a little bit before that. Oh, started a little bit too late. There we go. Might be a little bit off, but okay. So then, yeah, what I'll do is give myself a little bit leeway by clicking here so I can play back from here. And this is a fun little tip, but if I click on these two buttons here on either side of this loop button, basically means that when I click on the record button, it's not going to actually record outside of this loop brace here. It's only going to record within here. Filter. I think this is not warped correctly. Hold on. Oh yeah. All right. This is me a little bit off, but. Here we go. We'll just start here. Okay, so here we go. And you told me that I was holy. You whistled me forever and ever, all night long. When you turned it, 'cause I really believed it, and your eyes they deceived me. Forever and ever, all night long. When oh yeah. You told me that I was holy. You whistled me forever and ever, all night long. When okay, I'm actually gonna stop because this is like so chaotic. For those of you, I keep using the word warp. For those of you who don't know what warping is in Ableton Live, it just basically means that, so when we started, when I opened this session, this BPM, which is the song's tempo, said 120, right? And I imported a piece of audio. And this piece of audio was recorded at a very specific BPM, right? So it just basically means that if I set this to the correct like BPM, it means that it aligns it to the grid, meaning that technically that song section is supposed to start at bar 17, but probably because I set the wrong BPM, it's like starting at a really awkward place, and it's really hard for me to demonstrate looping right now. So actually, to save time, what I'm going to do is open up the session where I do have the take lanes, but I just wanted to show you this so that you can basically see the process of how to record takes. And what are takes? Takes are essentially like you recording a specific, like let's say, section over and over again. And what's great is then you can then basically like either be like, oh, that was the best take, so I'm going to keep it, or I really liked like this first section from this, take here, but then I kind of messed it up here. So then maybe I'll like take the little other section of that next, take that I did and kind of just like piece them together, Frankenstein them together. So in order to do that, and I'll show you like what my actual takes looked like rather than demonstrating this chaotically after driving for 7 hours. If you right click on the track header here after recording those takes, and by the way, it records the takes anytime there's a piece of audio that's here and you record on top of it. So in this case, I had the loop button on. So if I basically loop this over and over again, have this record button on and hit the record button, it's just going to create multiple takes. So in order to see the takes, we can right click here and then click on show take lanes. And so I only did 2 takes here, but then what I could do is, you know, let's just say I want to take pieces of each take. I can hit the B key, which is the pencil tool. And actually it looks like there's only like 1 lane here, but basically what you would do, and I'm just going to duplicate this for sake of time, but you can basically just like hit the B key to get the pencil tool and then click and drag to select the parts of the take that you like. So you'll see that it actually highlights what you're selecting. And then up here is what it's going to play back, what audio it's going to play back. So basically like selecting this part of the take and then selecting this part of the take, selecting this part of the take, it's going to combine those pieces as basically like one thing, one piece of audio. So you can kind of imagine it as if like, you know, you record like 5 to 10 different takes and you kind of like take bits and pieces of each best parts of each take and then kind of put them together as one thing so that it sounds like you actually recorded it all the way through perfectly. And that, my friends, is called comping, where you're basically creating a comp of all the best pieces of every single take. And it looks like this. So I'm going to open the real session so you can actually see what that looks like. It's in this one and we'll demo it here. Yes. But yeah, any questions about that while I'm opening this up? Got it. Okay. Oh, that was a response to that. How do you make it connect all the parts into one lane? So basically I'll show you in a moment, but basically by using that pencil tool, it creates what's called a comp. So I'll show you again, but there's a lot of plugins in this session. So I might take, oh, here we go. Here we go. Okay, so let's move this here. Let's move this here. So do you see how like it actually looks like, I mean, you can see that there's like different clips, meaning that this is a clip, this is a clip. If I can click on it on the top and select it, that means it's a separate clip. But you can see that these are all separate clips, but it's kind of combined together, right? But if I right click on this track header here and go to show take lanes. Oh, did I actually? This might be a different section here. Oh, I wonder why it's not. Okay, it is possible that, anyways, let's do this. So basically, so it was the wrong tempo. It was 134 and not 138. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. And yeah, so if I were to, I'll just show you here. You told me that I was holy. You really told me forever, never, all night long. I'm actually gonna do, it's not stopping. I'm gonna do that thing that I showed you where I can loop it over and over again. Which is basically click and drag, Command L. So that way I don't have to click and stop every single time. When you told me that I was holy, you really told me forever, never, all night long. When you told me that I was holy, you really sold me. Forever, never, all night long. Okay, so I have 3 takes. I'm gonna right click here, show take lanes. So these are the 3 different takes. The one that is currently bright pink is in this main. Do you see this is the main track right here? So this is what we're hearing if I were to play this back. And I know why it's not playing. Actually, what's going on? Why is this not? Oh, I think I might know what's going on. Okay, hold on. Nope. Weird. Why are you not playing back? I'm just gonna delete that. This is so weird. I don't know why it's happening. Oh, I wonder if it's because there we go. You told me. Okay, there we go. That I was holy. You really sold me. Okay, so what we're hearing right now is basically this take right here. If I wanted to hear this take, I could click on it, press return. So now this is highlighted, right? And this is what we're hearing up here. When you told me. And then if I want to hear this one, I can hit the return key, and then that's going to pop up here, and this is what we're going to play back. You told me. Right. And so then if I wanted to basically combine different pieces of each take, I can hit the B key, the pencil tool, right? And then just like highlight the best pieces of every single one. Yeah. So, and then up here is basically what we're hearing, right? And the wonderful thing is that so Ableton Live oftentimes will automatically add fades between each take, which basically kind of like smooths out the audio. So actually, if you wanted to hear what this sounds like, oh wait, that's not it. Here we go. Yeah. So you can see that it combined this clip with this clip, right? And then it automatically adds a crossfade, which kind of smooths out any potential like pops or clicks between each clip. Right? So it sounds like the same, like it was recorded in one take. Was holy. Right? So you really don't need to do anything. In my workflow, sometimes what I will do is after I comp it, if there's like an unnecessarily like really dramatic breath, like something like that, because I just like had really bad breath control, or like there's just like weird pops or clicks or something like that, then I'll like maybe go through and click and drag on anything I want to delete or get rid of, and then just literally hit the delete key. And then again, I already automatically have fades here, but then I can kind of like adjust these by just clicking and dragging on little squares to adjust the fades as necessary. But yeah, usually I don't have to do too much in terms of like kind of getting these to connect, because if you don't delete anything, technically it just connects automatically with the fades. Let's see here. How do you make yeah, it puts in the top lane. Exactly. Can you harmonize in multiple takes and play them all at once? Oh, that's a really great question. You can. What I would recommend doing though, so the way that I think about takes is like you're recording like one part. So in my workflow, what I would suggest doing, and I can show you another session, but basically what I like to do is just to like have like a main, like a lead main vocal track where I have multiple takes, and then I'll basically, here, let's actually open up that, that project, because once I started recording, making dance music, I started getting really lazy with my vocals for some reason. But when I was making straight ahead pop music, I would like go deep with like creating harmonies and ad libs and really fun things like that. I think it just like these days I just like want to finish with the song, and vocals are just, I'm not gonna lie, they're really tedious to me. They're tedious to a lot of people. But yeah, let's open up in my car and I'll show you an example of what I would recommend doing is basically just like creating different tracks for different vocal parts, meaning that I would recommend having just like a main vocal lead track and then maybe like a double track, which is basically like singing the same part, which you can kind of think of like a take, but I still technically will create a new track to have as like the double and then just like comp the best pieces of those takes together and then have another track for maybe like a higher harmony, another track for like a lower harmony, and then create multiple takes on either of those tracks. But one thing I will say to that question though, in response to that is find what works best for you, because there's like honestly like no right way or wrong way. It just like really depends on what your workflow, what works best for you. Yeah, you don't want to know the process I was doing before. I mean, honestly, like I'm still discovering my process all the time. I'm sure I do things that are like not super efficient, and honestly, like I mentioned, I've just gotten lazier and lazier and lazier. I'll show you the song that I just like had open. My friend, I was like, ooh, we've been traveling together. I was like, ooh, it'd be great to have your ears on this. Do you want to help me like mix this just to like see your process? And she's like, I really feel like you should melodyne the vocals before just slapping autotune on there. I was like, yeah, I know, but I just really wanted to like finish the song so I could play it out. And I was just like, I don't know, for me, tuning sometimes can be really tedious. But anyhow, so this is like a straight ahead pop song. And just to kind of show you an example, hopefully I have take lanes here. Maybe did I not? I feel insane because I know that these tracks definitely, maybe I have to unfreeze this. Have take lanes, show take lanes, hide take lanes. Yeah, I feel insane. Oh, you know what? I'm not insane. It's because I use the process of having a separate session for my vocals where I did a bunch of takes. But basically, like you can kind of see here, like I have a main vocal here. Touching with the mouse, we're so close, I've never felt so close. So that's my main vocal. I'm sure I comped a bunch of pieces of the take together. It sounds like it's one take, right? And then I've got a double, which is basically like the same exact part, like it's the same phrase, it's the same melody. And I think, oh, I think it's the wrong part. I should delete that. Here we go. Here's a I don't know why this is not playing all of a sudden, but basically it's the same exact part. And what, you know, I went over this last time actually, but basically adding a double just like thickens and layers that particular phrase. And then I've got a harmony here. And then I've got that vocal harmony doubled. And maybe you can hear in Zoom, but like that harmony is all the way over in the left ear if you're wearing headphones, and then the other harmony is all the way in the right side. So I have them like really far panned left and right. I've got this fun little ad lib here. So basically an ad lib is like when you sing parts that are not necessarily like the main vocal parts or like the main vocal phrases, but they're just kind of like literally like little ad libs. And then I turned a vocal into a pad. So I'll show you actually that in the other song. Oh, I actually didn't use that. I turned it into this. So all together, I haven't played this in forever, and I'm probably never going to release this because my sound sounds so different now, but. right? So like a harmony is kind of add like different textures and layers, right? But yeah, to my point about takes is what I would suggest doing is just like recording multiple takes for each part. And the nice thing about takes is like maybe like certain pieces of the take you'll never use, and sometimes later you'll take pieces of that audio and use them for something else. And then we've got this little texture at the end. And then we've got this little ad lib. Cool. So I just wanted to show you this example of just like how you can create like a more of like a pop track, I guess, where you have like a main vocal lead and then a double of that lead. And then, so those are the verses where there may be a little bit more minimal, but then the chorus is hit and then you add some harmonies and then doubles of those harmonies. And then honestly, this is like not even that many layers, but because I'm lazy, but then maybe some ad libs and other fun things. But I did want to show you some like really fun stuff, which is kind of what I was really planning on diving more into my portion of the presentation today. But how you can basically use vocal production to kind of like further the arrangement of the song and kind of just like push forward your creativity. So with vocals, I used to be like really meticulous and like, okay, now I'm gonna like, I showed you this last time, so I'm not gonna show it in this workshop, but I would basically go, create a separate session for my recording my vocals, record all the different takes for the different vocal parts, tune the vocals in that session with Melodyne, import those stems into, my main session, and then kind of go from there. Lately, I've just been honestly so lazy because I just want to like create in the session that I'm working in. And then like, I can always go back and re-record things if I want to, or, in this case for this song I'm going to show you, I'll definitely go back and Melodyne my vocals so that they're a bit more precisely tuned. So with Melodyne, usually what I do is I'll just like adjust the tuning of every single note that I sing in a way that's like kind of like more subtle, where it sounds like my voice, but just like a little bit more in tune so that it doesn't stick out so much to the listener. We'll talk about mixing in a moment in terms of panning. If you only have one harmony, should you pan it or not? So honestly, it kind of depends on the situation. But anyhow, let's dive into the more of the fun stuff real quick. But other questions about take lanes? Honestly, there's a lot of resources about take lanes. Honestly, if you Google Ableton Live's vocal take lanes or take lanes in general, I think they have like a video tutorial on it, and then they have this whole like article that talks about it pretty deeply. So, but yeah, with vocal arranging, I also went into this, I think, more deeply last time, but like doubles, harmonies, recording low harmonies, high harmonies, ad libs. Maybe I'll talk about vocal chops. I don't know if we talked about that last time, but I kind of wanted to talk mostly about, I guess, in the tail end of what I'm going to be touching on here is more of just like ear candy, fun type stuff. So I'll just like preview a little bit of this track here. And unfortunately, Zoom audio output only lets me choose 512 as my max buffer size. So I froze some stuff before this, so hopefully nothing glitches out, but we'll skip to, and actually just, okay, I lower the volume because sometimes Zoom audio outputs really loudly, but here we go. This is what it sounds like. There we go.
You're never open to look down. My hands are cold now and I waited until you broke what was good. Tender was tender for you, but you're never open to look down. My hands are cold now and I waited until you broke what was good.
Okay, let's get to this part here. Okay. Cool. So, yeah, with this track, again, like I feel like can't really talk about vocal production without talking about like production and just like creativity and pushing things forward, right? So for me, like a big part of vocal production is just like trying to find ways of like not getting stuck and letting that prevent you from pushing forward and like finishing the song, right? So for me, I was like, okay, I just want to like lay down vocal melodies that compel me and inspire me to move forward, right? So hence like I actually this track I was like I'm not going to create a new session for the vocals specifically because latency is fine and I'm just going to like I'm not even going to melodize my voice until later. I'm just going to throw some chains on there. So, what we can talk about, we're going to talk about a couple things in the next 10 minutes, 15 minutes or so. One is just using production as a way to, oh, sorry, I just realized my voice has been doubled this entire time because I can hear myself. But yeah, just using production as a way to kind of like push creativity forward. And then also, I know people had questions about like presets and a little bit about mixing stuff. So let's just take a look at, use this as an example to see what I did. So for one, I don't remember if we talked about vocal chops last time, but honestly, I think that vocal chops are the most fun thing that you can do with vocal production. And in Ableton Live, I feel like they make it like fairly easy. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna basically add a MIDI track. We're gonna grab Simpler. We're gonna throw this onto a MIDI track, and then down here it says throw sample here. So I'm just gonna grab a sample, one of these vocal things, vocal recordings that I recorded, and throw that in here. So this is like the whole sample. And then what I can do is I can turn on slice, and it's basically going to chop up different parts of that sample. And the way that this works is basically every single slice that we see here is assigned to a MIDI note. So actually, if I go ahead and create, oh my God, this is so funny. I think the dog that we're traveling with is eating dinner right now, and I can hear smacking away. But yeah, I'm going to create a MIDI clip here, and let's get rid of that. That was the wrong shift command. Shift command, shift command. I always forget which. Yeah, shift command M. So Basically, different MIDI notes trigger different parts of the sample. So, you know, I can maybe randomly add some MIDI notes here and see what happens here. And obviously, this is not very musical because I'm not even paying attention to rhythm or listening to what I'm doing, but this is what it would come out to. It's not very musical. But what I did is I basically, yeah, threw a sample in here. And actually, let me undo that because one really cool trick, and I've shown this in a lot of different workshops, but once you've kind of like decided what your vocal chop is, and you can, by the way, if it's a really long sample, you can drag these flags around and it will change kind of where these slices occur. And then you can also kind of change, like, you know, slicing by transient right now, which is like the beginning of each little waveform here. You can also slice by beat if you want to. But yeah, once you decide what your slices are, technically what you can then do is right click here, slice to new. Actually, I didn't mean to do that. We can slice to drum rack. And do that. Oh gosh, where did it go? Okay, there it is. Right click, slice to drum rack, and then now it converts it basically into a drum rack where every single pad is going to trigger a different sample, right? And so that's basically what I've done here is I have sliced this sample, created into a drum rack, converted to a drum rack, and then essentially, like, what's cool about this converting to a drum rack is you can basically click on each pad, which opens up a different, simpler instrument, and then transpose that particular sample up or down. So you can see that it says plus 12 ST, which is semitones. This is transposed up an octave, and that's why this sounds really high. And I did some additional processing here, so we'll talk about EQ in just a moment, but, you know, I made cuts to like around 844 hertz, 4.6 kilohertz, 8.8 kilohertz, which basically is just like removing frequencies that don't sound good. You can see I also cut a little bit of low end out to kind of give it, like, I don't know, by cutting out some of these things that don't sound good. I feel like oftentimes will also emphasize some of the brighter frequencies. But this plugin here is really what created this particular sound, where this airy sound. I love this plugin by Antares called Throat. And there's like a little knob that says add breathiness. So actually without this plugin, still pretty cute, but you know, with this little breathiness knob here, this like really nice breathy and like airy sound, which is kind of fun. And then, you know, I've got a compressor on here, which, you know, we talked about it, I think, a little bit last time, but long story short, compressor just basically lets you manage your dynamics. So if you have a vocal that's really quiet and it gets really loud, it can help you catch those peaks in loudness so that the loud parts don't startle you as much. So, and then we've got echo here. So we've got, without the delay, echo is basically a delay effect. So without it, technically, I think I actually have, what are called sends and returns, which basically these send knobs are sending to these return tracks over here, which I think also have reverb and delay on them. So Ether is a really cool plugin, which is basically a delay. And then also Valhalla, which is a reverb, which is really nice. So I'm just showing you this, like, this like as a way to kind of show you, like, hey, vocal chops are really cool because they're a really fun vocal production thing that you can do that honestly, like, I took a piece of something that I already recorded and created a new melody out of it, and then did some effects processing to make the sound different, and that kind of like adds to like the vibe of the song, right? Yeah, so that's really fun. And then I think, yeah, here I just like added some high oohs. Yeah. Okay, so I just basically like added harmonies that are high up. In my chain here, I have auto tune, which basically just creates that auto tune sound. Again, that Avox, Antares Avox throat plugin. And then I've got some EQs here to like cut some undesirable frequencies. And then I'm like boosting around 4 kilohertz, which brings out more presence in the vocal. So one thing I will say, because I think there was a question about presets for EQs. I really highly recommend like learning what different frequency bands sound like. Just because I mean, really the gist of it is like there's no shortcuts for EQ. Like you can use presets, and I use presets all the time. So, like for example, this plugin here is FabFilter's Pro Q3. It's excellent, and you can see that if I click here, there's like a bunch of different presets, right? Um, and sometimes I find that they can be helpful, and sometimes it's like a starting point. But I would say personally for EQ, I oftentimes will just start from scratch, just because like every situation is just different. Even with my own voice, like I know my voice really well. I know that I tend to have like a lower voice with a lot of like bass in it and like a lot of like 250 hertz frequencies in there that kind of sound like a little muddy and gross. And I usually like will have to boost more of my mid and high end. But even like knowing my voice every time, every situation is a little bit different. So it's really good to kind of just like start learning what different frequencies sound like, frequency bands sound like. Um, and one way of doing that, honestly, is just like um, doing this kind of thing where you click on this arrow next to where it says EQ8 to make it bigger, but basically just like kind of going through here and swooping through. And a really fun trick is if you click on this headphone icon in EQ8, you can really hear it like isolates what those frequencies sound like, right? So if I actually go over here to like 330 or 2, you can hear it kind of sounds like a really muffly down here. So if you're like hearing your vocal, you're like, it sounds really dark, you can kind of like sweep through to hear like, oh, okay, I think this is contributing to that. You can then just kind of go down here and cut that and maybe like make the Q less wide so you're not cutting such a large range. And then like if you're like, ooh, maybe like maybe where's this guy? That's not what I want. Let's just do that. Yeah, maybe you're like, ooh, this sounds really, really lovely up here, and I want to boost that. Maybe I'll, choose this shape here where it kind of just like generally boosts this whole area over here. So, but yeah, that's kind of my big tip is like starting to get to learn what different frequency bands sound like. That's really going to help you out with beyond like just choosing, even with like choosing presets, like having an understanding of like what's going on. But yeah, so what other fun things do I have going on here? Actually, since we're on the topic of like presets really quickly, I guess I can show you what else is on. Let's just take a look at my vocal chain actually. So vocal chain is basically the chain of effects from left to right. And again, this is not my normal workflow. I was just kind of like had my friend Staria take a look at this, and it was just kind of fascinating to see her work. I personally never use this. This is actually a preset compressor in Ableton Live called de-esser. And so for those of you who don't know what a de-esser is basically something that attenuates or lowers the volume of basically fixing sibilance, what's called sibilance, which is basically when you sing, it like emphasizes the S's. So de-esser, right? So oftentimes when a de-esser do, it'll compress or lower the volume of those sounds. Usually what I do is I'll find where the S is. And then I think we talked about this last time actually. I'll just like isolate that little part of the clip. And then I'll just lower the clip gain. because that's basically what you're doing when you're de-essing. Um, but yeah, so you can see we've got de-essers up here. We've got EQ up here that's like dipping around 426 hertz, probably because it sounded really dark. The thing with like EQ too, I just want to mention really quickly is like with Ableton Live's EQ. And I thought it was so funny that she did this, like change these multiple EQs, but it's like honestly, it's like really valid because even if you cut in one EQ and see how they're cut in the same place, oftentimes the first EQ in Ableton Live won't catch it the first time. Whereas like FabFilter Pro Q3, it's like really precise, and so it will. So just one thing to note if you're using like the Ableton stock EQs. And then we've got glue compressor, which again, compression just like helps to manage your dynamic range. We've got, oh, this is doing literally nothing. And then we've got auto tune here. EQ8, again, just cutting around 215 hertz around here, boosting at the high end. We've got more compressors and EQs and more EQs here. But yeah, I think there's some other presets here. So the presets that I typically will use would be like maybe like if I'm using FabFilter's Pro C, which is like their compressor, sometimes I'll use like some of their presets here, but yeah, again, I just use presets as like a starting point, and then one thing I would just like add is just like use your ears. If it sounds good, it sounds good. If it doesn't, just because it's a preset doesn't mean that it works. You kind of just have to use your ears and use your best judgment. And then I've got this, I usually like to add this hardware emulating EQ in my chain, which is basically Pultec EQP1A, which I basically use to boost in like the 10K range, which gives like more air to my vocals and makes it a little bit brighter. But yeah, and then in terms of like creative effects that I like to do, did I do that here? Oh yeah, one thing I wanted to show you is, because I had it in the other song, is turning your vocal into like, let's say like a pad. So cool. So I mean, basically what I did is, so this is like simpler. This is similar to the Ableton Live's plugin Simpler, but it's called Sampler. It's a lot more going on there, but one reason why I use it is it has this mode, sustain mode, where I don't know if I can zoom in here, but basically the arrow goes forward and goes back, meaning that whatever you have these flags set to, so this is like my little start, end, and end point here, it'll basically loop forward and back. So you can actually see this here. Okay, goes back, forward. Basically what I did is I recorded myself trying to hold out this note, and I used to be an opera singer. I used to be able to have really good breath control, but my breath control is like shit now. So I use this trick sometimes where I'll just throw like part of me singing and holding out a note, throw it into Sampler, and then literally just like choose this mode where it goes back and forth. And then again, FX processing where I just like EQ'd out some of the frequency sections that kind of don't sound the best, and compressed this a little bit. And I think if we go to so send C and D, you can see that C and D matches up with this bigger reverb here. So air ether, which is like this really big reverb, and D is this delay. So you can hear it actually like ring out, right? And then I did the same thing for the lower, actually higher, not lower. I just labeled it incorrectly. And I added something called sidechain compression, which basically means that it's ducking, the volume of this track is ducking every time the kick comes in. So altogether, it sounds like this. And so again, whole point of this, it's like you can use vocal production in a creative way to kind of like build your song and build the arrangement. And so like this section, I knew I wanted it to be kind of this like fun little breakdown build up section where you just like have drama that's being created, right? So, you can add layers by adding vocal parts, but then you can maybe turn your vocal into a pad and, you can do that musically where it's like, I'm doing like adding new parts like every 8 bars or something like that, right? And then you can see, I think here, one thing before I move on to our guest artist, one thing I wanted to touch on is just like the idea of automating, where you can use automation to shape your arrangement. And basically, automating is when you just like change something over time. So, like you can see here, I have this utility plugin, which has a gain knob, which is basically adjusting volume. If I right click on it and show automation, you can see that I guess I'm like automating this getting louder. So like it kind of fades in here, right? I don't think I did this here, but like in certain tracks, like I have it where it starts really quietly and then it gets louder to kind of like create more intensity and drama. And then like one other example of automation is where like here.
Until you broke what was good.
Right. So you can really hear that delay ring out. And so I think is it this? Yeah, so you can see this red dot is indicating automation. And so I've basically automated the delay ringing out so that when it goes into the next section,
until you broke
that
what was good.
you hear that like echo happening. So, it's just kind of just like showing you an examples of like how you can use production to kind of like further the arrangement and make things just like a little bit more interesting. Okay, so I'm just gonna check the chat here. I'm trying to learn, but sometimes learn from copying and tweaking. Yeah. So again, that's like the whole point is a lot of this is trial and error. And sometimes, a lot of times actually you learn cool things along the way of you just like trying things out. But yeah, I think that's a pretty good stopping point. I know there's like a lot of vocal production to talk about. And this won't be the last vocal production workshop. There'll be plenty more, and we have a special guest. So I wanted to introduce her. So everybody, we have a really special person with us today. Her name is Shay. She's a super talented producer and DJ. I was going to read a little bit from your profile on Insomniac.
Thank
But
you.
yes, she's LA based. Producer, DJ, singer, multimedia artist. She brings a fresh perspective to electronic music, drawing inspiration from artists like Kanye West, Gwen Stefani, and Skrillex. She combines her love of hip hop, pop, and electronic music. She debuted 2017, releasing an array of remixes and singles, landing a number one on a Hype Machine with her Billie Eilish remix, as well as being named one of the 50 best remixes of 2017 by Run the Trap. But yeah, without further ado, I wanted to introduce Shay. I'm so excited to learn from her today and all of her wonderful tips and tricks.
Well, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, perfectly.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Lauren / Mini Bear. That was great. I always like seeing how our fellow producers work, both vocal production and elsewhere. But yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. That was an old bio you were reading from, but I appreciate it.
Sorry.
Yes, no, not at all. Like next time I'll get you a new one. No, but yeah, so just to give a little background, I'm a house DJ and producer, and I do my own vocals on a lot of my records. So I thought it'd be good to maybe use one of my most current releases as kind of the one that I share and kind of talk about. Um, so many great points Lauren got into I mean, there's so much to know for vocals from recording to editing and everywhere in between. For me, this particular track I'm going to show you has actually a very simple vocal, meaning it's literally just mainly one take. A lot of times there's going to be doubles and panned ones supporting it and harmonies and ad libs and a lot of different stuff. But in this particular song, it's very much like a tech house kind of straightforward vocal. But whether it's one vocal layer or many, each one has a lot of effects on him, compression, EQ, and there's a lot of different tips and tricks. So, that kind of sound like in a lot of Chris Lake's songs, Fisher, like just the lead vocal of a female vocal, usually that's just almost spoken word in a way. But it really needs to cut through and kind of stand on its own. So that's what I'm going to share here with you guys. Let me just pull up the session and see how this all looks. Okay, so here we go. Should be seeing my session now. Let me know if it's too loud for any reason as I play it right now.
A little,
What were you gonna say? Really loud?
a little blurry. You might need to change your
Utility?
resolution, or it's a little
Um,
blurry. Might be like, yeah,
oh,
your
blurry.
display settings, maybe.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Let me stop the share real quick. Sorry, I don't use Zoom a ton, so let's
It's
see.
okay. Are you using like a really big display?
No, but I'm wondering maybe I should do. Oh no, I should do that. I'm not. I'm really not. And it was going fine when I tested it before, so I'm wondering, let me try it again, I guess.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Resolution in my computer settings would be what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Hmm.
There's also like little gray blocks.
Yeah, I did see that. I don't know if I can work around that at all. Let me see. Would it be in my
Okay,
system
there's
settings?
a tip in the chat in Zoom settings to turn off hardware
Okay.
acceleration. Ah,
Okay,
it's
one
causing
sec.
this block.
Okay.
That's okay.
Zoom settings causing these blocks. Okay. Let me see if I can fix it then.
Oh, it's in
What's it
I guess it's
under?
in video.
Share screen?
It's in
Oh,
video,
video.
video advanced. And then yeah, use hardware acceleration for sending video maybe.
Hmm. Shoot, I'm not seeing that option right here on mine.
Oh, that's if you scroll down at the bottom of
Yeah.
in Zoom settings,
Yep. In video.
video, yeah,
Maybe advanced. Yeah, it's all
yeah, advanced.
checked. It's already checked, so it should be working. I don't
No,
know.
yeah, so I think he was suggesting to turn it off.
Oh, turn
Turn
it
off
off.
hardware,
Okay,
yeah.
let's try that. Okay, let's try that. Sorry about that, everyone. All right, let's see. Oh, I still see the squares too. Um, well, let's just see. I'm sorry about the squares, but maybe we can
Yeah,
still
that's
make it
okay.
work.
I think we can
Um,
still make it work.
yeah. Do you think I should turn the volume down utility wise?
I
Maybe.
would just turn it on a little bit, yeah.
Okay, let's try. Okay, so here's the track that I'm gonna be, or the vocals, but
I give my heart to the kick drum. Just need that beat, let me get some.
and sorry if there's a little glitching too. I did my best to troubleshoot everything, but as everyone knows, Zoom does what it does. So you can hear it's just one layer of vocal.
I give my heart to the kick drum. Just need that beat, let me get some.
And please excuse all those little pops because we hate pops. We hate those pops in as vocal producers. However, I promise it's not in the actual song. So I was just going to kind of go through my vocal chain for this. And as you can see, I actually, and this goes to the point of there's certain rules and, things to abide by that make a lot of sense generally when approaching vocal production. But every song's different, everyone works differently, and it's really whatever ends up working for you, especially as you trial and error through many different types of songs, different vocals. The more you basically, it's the same thing with production. Production is just doing it over and over again, seeing what works for you. So I actually sometimes use Studio One to record my vocals, or when I'm in Ableton, in my own weird way, because before comping existed, Lauren, I actually used to just create a bunch of audio tracks, Command T, just create a bunch of audio tracks, and I would record in my recording lane here a take, and then I would drag it down and just have a bunch of takes and kind of comp on the fly that way, which is so much less productive than the way she taught you was talking about with comping now within Ableton, which is now available and amazing. And one day I hope to try to use that more. So as you can see, these are like different, each of these are different takes. Like this is all from the 41st take. And yes, it seems like a lot, but maybe the first 10 takes were just like messing around, kind of not serious takes. So anyway, you can see all of these are from various different takes, and you can really see how I cut them up because you become very much a perfectionist when you're a producer, and with vocals, it's no different, especially when it's your own voice. You can be a harsh critic on it. So that's how I came to get these vocals. I actually use a microphone called Slate Digital, which is basically a sensor microphone that processes to recreate the tones of like classic microphones and preamps. So it's kind of emulating, and it's emulating different microphones. So this is what I use right now. And I have my like preset that I've created that says Shay. But basically, I won't go into too much detail, but each one of these chains right here is a different item that's putting processing onto my vocals. But I can quickly say like the FGN is a digital recreation of like a very classic equalizer from the 70s. Some of these are, normally analog type gear, but they've made electronic versions of them. The FG stress is a replication of a distressor, which is a type of compressor, and it can kind of create different feels and tones and recreate that. This air one is kind of similar to what I guess it actually kind of is similar to the Antares plugin that Lauren was talking about. But same idea, it just adds a little more air to whatever you're working with. So for example, but that being said, I kind of have the opposite type of voice. It's very like breathy and a little high. So like I don't really need a lot of air.
I give my heart
And
to
if I turn it up,
I give my heart to the kick drum. I give my heart to the kick drum.
and see, it becomes a little too tinny. So I really don't want a ton, but I like its effect. So put a little of that on it. Um, anyway, and then just another compressor. So that's the very first thing I have going. After that, I too am a bit of a lazy vocal producer, but I personally just like the way autotune sounds on my voice. So depending on if it's spoken word, and sometimes autotune will create a pitch that you don't want. So sometimes you just bypass it altogether. Um, change the pitch of through Melodyne. Or another way to do it is actually just double click on the take that you want to do. And these are basically, so we probably all know by now, area down here is a pitch. If you go down, it'll, go down by a whole steps. And these are, what are they called? Semitones, I guess. So this is gonna make it go up, but like, or sorry, on this side. This will make it go up little increments all the way until you hit a certain number, which is 50, then it goes up a whole step. So it's another way you can tune your vocals just if you just want to cut that. It's kind of less it's more of just if you just have a little bit to tune, but Melodyne's much better because you can pull up the whole vocal and kind of go from there. Um, so speaking of EQ, I've been really into EQ lately. Not only is it important to get your vocals sounding, right within the mix, say there's too much low end. Like as you can see, I actually really cut out quite a bit of low end, like almost 400 hertz on my low end, just because I use it almost like an effect. I can show you what it would sound like without it. So here's with it,
I give my heart to the kick drum.
and here's without it.
I give my heart to the kick drum.
Sorry for all the pops. It's really hard to hear. But you can hear a lot more of that deep muddiness without the low end cut. And of course, if you're working with a male vocal, it's going to be a whole different set of EQ. What I find kind of helpful is having kind of a preset or making presets for if I'm working with a female vocal or a male vocal. And then, like Lauren was saying, kind of fine tuning it from there. And also automation. If you push A, it pulls up automation. Do I even have automation on here? Sometimes it shows, oh yeah, later in the song. So it's just very mild, but later in the song, I just bring it up a little bit right there. But you can just, I use it all the time. You can just say it's, I don't know, set around there. You can just select shift, and while you're holding shift, just drag it up and you see how it's changing the low end cut. So in this area, it was more, I just wanted a little more low end cut. But that way you don't have to create a whole new EQ channel. Like you don't have to duplicate that and have multiple channels and, turn one off and on depending where you are. And then I have another compressor. Guess you can never have enough compressors and EQs. And then I will talk about my favorite reverb that I use, which is EMT 250. And it's a very straightforward, user-friendly EQ. It's basically, it's actually, fun fact, it was introduced in like 1976. It was one of the very first digital reverbs. So it's pretty famous just for its warm, lush, classic reverbs. Um, and I also like it because it does have just the classic reverb that if you click, you'll just be kind of, you can change the seconds and the delays here. But what I have it set up for this particular song is phase, which is actually almost like an effect, which you could probably hear when I was very first playing this vocal, but I'll just show you quickly like what they sound like. So this is with the phase, which I'm using.
I give my heart to the kick drum.
It almost creates like an echo or like a wideness to the vocal that gives it a little effect. If it was just the normal reverb,
I give my heart to the kick drum.
right? And if you want less,
I give my heart to the kick drum.
the dry wet. It's a great reverb. It's very simple, clearly, but again, things you can automate. Say you want one part to be very wet and saturated. You can automate some of it higher, and then say you want the tail end to get really dry, you can make it go lower. So
I give my heart to the kick drum.
obviously this wouldn't need it, but it comes in handy for sure, to have the ability to kind of automate stuff. I think especially with vocal production, it's a lot of automation, especially to keep your channels really clean and straightforward down here. And then I will touch briefly on the de-essing that you were talking about, because I have serious sibilance in my voice. That's the S's, the hissing, the essiness, as we say. And now I'm just hearing it in every word that I speak. So there are two tricks to kind of help minimize this. One of them I learned before I was even producing myself, and I was being recorded by an experienced sound engineer in New York. And basically, let's take an example here.
To the kick drum.
How about this one?
Just need that beat, let me get some.
There's a few right here. So it says just need that beat. Let me get some. There's two S's right here and here.
Just need that beat, let me get some.
So on both of them, let me just pull this out so we can see. I'll zoom in and that's my S, right? So I'm going to Command E and just like break it into its own little moment here. And I'll turn it down. Sometimes it's by 4, sometimes it's literally by 9. 9 might be too much. In this case, it'll make it sound like you have a lisp if you take too much away.
Just need that beat, let me get some.
Which actually wasn't too bad here because I think I'm just have so many compressors just like, gaining and kind of pushing all these frequencies forward. But so one preliminary way is to turn it down. Sometimes that's not enough. So what I do is I drag in an EQ8, and I don't want to like hurt your ears because this process a lot of vocal production can be kind of like when you're doing it because you have to hear things over and over, especially when it's your own voice. But basically right here, I've boosted the frequency that I found the S to be really popping at. And the way you do that is say you pull in EQ8, it looks like this. You take a frequency, you loop your area, and then you hear how that has like a really serious whistle right around there. I'm not going to keep playing it, but I would really, if I was not in this webinar, I would hurt my ears almost to find it. And by the way, this little headphone thing makes it so that when you pull any of these, it shows you just what that frequency is doing versus without it. But with it, I can hear exactly just that when I'm moving it. So then I find out the frequency is like 8.43, let's say. I have a different de-esser than Mini Bear used. But I would basically I'm using the UAD precision de-esser. They all operate in essentially the same way where they duck certain frequencies that you don't want, basically. So where that is, let's say 8.43, I'm just going to mute that because we obviously don't want that triggering and boosting anything. Then you're just going to change your frequency here to around what that is and change the threshold to whatever you want. That's basically how much it's going to duck it. And actually, oh, it's because it's not on right now. Sorry. So I have it triggering on and off, honestly, in this track because I don't want that frequency ducked for all of my vocals. I just really want it on those S's that are a bit harsh. So you can see that this gain reduction, every time it goes over that S, it's pulling it down to whatever I have the threshold set at. So anyway, it's an important thing though, because, once you're done with a song, say you're going to send it to mastering to get, mastered and boosted, and every bad frequency you have in a mix will show more as, it's going through the production process. And so that's, it's important, especially when you vocal produce and the more you get into it, you start with the basics, but then as you kind of get more and more into it, you can really nitpick and have a good ear for things that don't quite sound right in the mix, or yeah, just how to kind of navigate that. And I will say, I don't know, it's funny because obviously male vocals sound great too, but I've always really loved female vocals with electronic music specifically because there tends to be so much bass and kind of low end in electronic music that I think female vocals pair nicely with it. Oh, puppy. Lauren has. But yeah, let's see. Uh. Does anyone have any questions so far? Sorry about all these little boxes all over my presentation. Actually, like I just opened the chat and it created one of those boxes. I'll figure it out for next time.
You're
But
doing
yeah,
great.
thanks. I don't know if there was a ton more I was going to talk about. Actually, I have one little fun thing I wanted to, just because I did it once in this session, so I thought I might as well try to show you. Um, it's just kind of a fun thing I use to kind of do workarounds. So I try to keep my lead track pretty what it is, meaning say I want a really long delay or tail at the end of this
Bring the house down.
say I want to say that go down 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 or whatever. I won't always add it to my lead. A lot of times what I like to do is you can Command T, make a new channel, solo both your lead and that channel, and then change this to resampling. And you just record. Sorry, I have to move things around because the Zoom stuff is in the way. Okay. So you just,
Bring the house down.
so that just recorded whatever is soloed basically. Sorry, I'm trying to navigate the boxes. So if I now solo this, it's exactly what this top lead channel is.
The house down.
So that's essentially how I got this clip down here. I'm going to delete this now, but that's how I got it. And on that clip, I added a kind of crazy echo effect. And specifically this Ableton, this is a built-in Ableton echo effect, right? I quite like it though, I will say. But sometimes it can go a little cray-cray, and I don't love that. For example, if I had it on my lead track and it was like on 100%, it might just keep echoing when you're past that time or before it. Sometimes Ableton does weird things. So my workaround for that was to create this new channel and put it on there, and somehow it just behaves better. So I did that and it sounds like this. And because it's so heavily affected, it can live directly on top of this, even though, see, this is generally, we don't want this. This is a no-no. It is the exact same take, right? So there is a lot of opportunity for phasing, which is when two of the exact same frequencies kind of cancel each other out and just sound weird. This is exactly what I'm talking about by there's rules, but then there's not rules. Like you can break them. If it sounds good, just go with it. Don't think too hard. So together, and by the way, there probably is some phasing for sure. It's just masked and it's already kind of an affected while it's using the phase of the reverb setting. So
Every day celebrate. Bring the house down. The house down.
so it's just kind of a good way. In fact, resampling comes in handy in general. I resample all sorts of stuff just so I can have a new channel with that audio, which I don't know, I'm just an audiophile. I love working with audio specifically. Even my drums, a lot of times I will resample so that I can do a multitude of different things. Um, but yeah, I think when it comes to vocals and in general, like I said, there's great foundations, obviously, logistically, to know how to record, how to comp and create your vocal takes. And then from there, it's a lot of experimenting and getting to know, like Lauren was saying, the different frequencies, what getting rid of that frequency makes the others sound like, and also then, of course, within the scheme of a whole song, because whether you produce the song or not, there's going to be a track and the vocals have to live with that track. So, for example, part of the reason I like cutting all those low ends off of my vocals is not just for effect, although I do love the effect. It's because it just leaves so much more room in my mixes to have all these frequencies elsewhere, which many things have. It could be a synth, it could have basses, it could be drums, a lot of things. And same goes for the top end, obviously. Um, yeah. There's other plugins I like and use, but a lot of the ones that I shared today are kind of my go-tos. And, especially if you're working with the same vocal all the time, which, like I said, a lot of times I'm working with my own vocal, you can kind of know already going into it, oh, I remember this sounds really good on my voice, or, you'll find your different tips and tricks for each vocal. But yeah, it's a lot of trial and error and sometimes more error until you get to a certain point. I think things start to click. It's like when you learn a new language and suddenly you wake up, you're like, oh, I get it. I think I'm I'm getting it now. Um, but yeah, I think that's pretty much everything I was gonna talk about. I don't know if anyone has questions. Lauren, you want to chime back in?
Yeah. If anyone has any questions, you can either just throw them in the chat or hold on, let me move
Yeah, you
spotlight
can.
or just yeah, there's a Q&A box as well. Now is the time to ask those questions. But yeah, thank you. It's always a pleasure having you, Shay. It's just a
Oh,
little nice window into your process, which I think like what you mentioned, I just find just super useful to learn other people's process because there's just so many different ways going about producing vocals.
exactly. And I think as with many things in music production in general, there's always something new to know, and that's kind of
Yeah.
crazy.
So
Like,
exciting.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think for me, I do get kind of stuck in my own processes, right? I think we probably all do. So this sort of thing is super fun and helpful to see the way
Totally.
other people do things. It's almost like peeling back the curtain, and I'm like embarrassed of my process.
Oh, no, I totally get that. Actually,
Yeah.
yeah, when she in here for a second, but yeah, when Staria, my friend Staria was
Hmm.
sitting in like listening to my track and kind of just like taking a stab at mixing my vocals, I felt so vulnerable just because it's like, yeah,
Right.
it is was your voice first of all, but just like seeing
Exactly.
people watch, I don't know, look at things that you're like, I don't know if this is the right way, but this is how I did it. But it was also cool to watch her just like do things that I would have never thought to do, but then also things that are like not super conventional. It's just like, I don't know, like chaining like five different multi-band compressors together, but they like it sounds, if it's like what you said, if it sounds good, it works.
Yeah, if
Sounds
it
good.
sounds good, it sounds good. Yeah. Um,
Totally. Um,
Trying to
but
think if there's
yeah.
anything else.
But yeah, I definitely want to get that reverb plugin now. It sounds great.
Yeah,
The
I just love it. It's kind of just UAD EMT 250.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. It's
nice.
it's just my go-to. I mean, I'll use Ableton's stock reverb sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
But
hyper reverb is pretty good.
mhm.
Um, yeah, but yeah, thank you so much for your insight,
Thank
and yeah, thanks
you.
everyone for your great questions. We'll have to do a part three, another one. I just feel like there's just always like so much more to go through, and then by that point, I'm sure we'll have new songs where we can show those workflows.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you,
three.
everyone, and thank you, Femhouse and Mini Bear.
Thank you, Shay. Yeah, thanks everyone for your great questions. Part three will happen at some point, and yeah, we've got some more workshops coming up. There's a dog on top of me, so it's really hard to type out. But it's just this is com. We have all of our sessions listed. We've got some DJ sessions, some production sessions. Oh, and I will make the announcement here. We did an Ableton Live 12 course last year, and we're gonna do part two next month, which is basically kind of like the same course, but just like new tips and tricks and new features that came out since they initially released Live 12. So but yeah, So keep your eyes peeled for that. But yeah, I have to hit the road again.
Literally.
Um, literally hit the road again. If you're late to tuning in, I've been traveling across the country in an RV, so I'm a little cracked out. I'm not gonna lie, but appreciate this little piece of groundedness for today. If anyone's in Denver, we'll be in Denver on Sunday the 25th, so be lovely to see your face. But yeah, otherwise, until next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And yeah, thanks again to Shay. Everyone give a wonderful round of applause to her.
Thank
And
you.
yes, yeah, thanks
Much love.
everyone. Much love. See y'all soon. Bye.
Bye.